Hey guys, welcome back to another Weird Wednesday. I'm Ashers, and this is
Pato.
Pat. How was your Christmas?
Christmas was okay. Well, except for waking up Christmas morning to news that there was a terrorist attack in Tennessee. Um,
Yeah, remember that? That was
that was interesting when that whole thing happened.
wild. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was. I don't feel like. Well, and maybe it's because I've kind of been the last couple days been just kind of turned off of social media, but I didn't feel like we knew a lot. I mean, I know it just happened, so like obviously we didn't know a lot, but like some things that were like obvious, like I didn't feel like we knew that there was that message playing the whole time, or I didn't know that. I just knew there was a bomb attack or something.
I followed it pretty closely Christmas morning because it seemed like it was going to be something. Like it didn't seem like it was going to be a gas explosion or something like that. And I want to say that the one of the first details to come out was the, at least by that night, was the detail about the recording.
About the recording, yeah, but it
Yeah, and
happened at like 2 in the morning or something. And I mean, it was technically Christmas morning, right? I mean,
right early
yeah,
that morning. I don't know if it was necessarily that close to midnight. I from the pictures it looks like it's dawn, but I don't know if that necessarily.
could be street lights
Um,
and stuff. I don't remember.
yeah, or maybe that's just when the photographers got down there.
Right, that's true.
But yeah, I mean the fact that there was the recording telling people to get away. I think what happened was that night. So I followed it during the day on Twitter, but like you said, I don't really watch. It's very rare that I sit down and watch the news, the nightly
Yeah,
news or anything. I
right.
more or less just get my news from Twitter, and sometimes that'll be overpowered by people talking about how much Wonder Woman sucked, right? So like, there was a certain point in the day where if you went on, and mind you, this is also Christmas Day, so I am trying to be a fucking dad, but
Right,
like,
right. Live your life, sure.
right, not like constantly be on Twitter. But there was a certain point in the day when like I felt like my Twitter was like that was kind of put. There wasn't any new news with that. That was pushed in the background, and then the news cycle became, holy shit, Wonder Woman is terrible. And but by that evening, I did see somebody that I follow on Twitter, who's like a political commentator slash journalist,
Yeah,
do a multi tweet kind of breakdown of what we know and what it suggests. And they pretty much laid out the narrative that's now become what we know about what happened is that, this was clearly a terrorist attack because it wasn't about necessarily the loss of human life because they were trying to get people away. It was something specific to that AT&T building. Before they knew that he was his dad was an ex-employee, and he was really trying to take down the internet and cell reception in that area. Um, that was going to be a part of it, that it was going to be a domestic person, that it was going to be someone that, wasn't just some crazy person trying to murder people, that there was a clear-cut cause that goal he was trying to achieve.
right.
And that's pretty much everything that's come out. Like, we know the guy's name, we know that he was a conspiracy theorist, we know that he was posted shit online about 5G and all that stuff. His dad had worked at that facility. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I don't know how much more info we're going to get, though. I feel like this is probably all we're
Well,
going
they're
to
probably trying to make sure
hear.
that he's not part of some type of group or something like that to make sure that that we're not going to see this again until they share a lot. And they probably don't want people to know that they think that. Um,
That he's part of a group,
yeah, he didn't really act alone. I mean, he acted alone that day, but he definitely could have been part of a group, and this could have been organized by more than just him.
right?
So, I
Right. Well, I
mean,
mean, I guess that's the thing, is that like what quantifies as being part of a group, part of a member of a Facebook group, or some kind of a Reddit thread or whatever.
well, probably any of those things. It's just as long as he organized with other people, however, whatever the means was in person or online or, what have you. Um, that I'm not sure. I'm not a terrorist, so
Yeah.
I don't
So
know what
that
people do. But the thing is that like obviously this guy did it. He's got some. There's there's a very clear cut and dry motive. They haven't told us what that is, and there's a reason for that. There's got to be, because it just doesn't make any sense to do all that and not leave an obvious message behind. So he probably
No. Well, yeah, no, the clear cut message was to take down that AT&T building, because that facility was one of like the switching stations for the internet in that area. It was it wasn't like an AT&T office. It wasn't like an AT&T store.
right.
It was like if you were to blow up like a power station in your area, and it takes down that section of the grid. That's kind of what that facility did.
Well, right, but
with,
why?
Because he was like a 5G conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean it's connected to that. He didn't explicitly come out and say this is because of 5G. You know what I mean? Like he was making an obvious statement, and especially because he didn't want to hurt anybody, and that's clear. Until like I said, I think that he's got to have some type of manifesto written somewhere or something. He's got to, and they probably know, and they probably have whatever it is he had.
Yeah.
I mean, he took all the money out of his accounts and gave it to people, and gave people his assets and shit before he did this. I mean, this was in the making for a while. So I just doubt that he's like, oh, just, go ahead and guess what this is about. I think that he probably left a note or something somewhere and told someone something to where it was very obvious. And like I said, I think they probably know what it is by now. They just haven't reported it to the news yet, because they might be, I mean, maybe it is related to some type of group, and I don't know. They don't want to cause panic. I don't know. But either way, I mean, the guy's crazy. But I've heard a lot of different things, and seen a lot of different, the big conspiracy going around about it right now is that he was a plant for the Democrats, the Democrats, because that AT&T building, something about fake ballots were there or something, and they didn't.
What?
Oh yeah, they didn't want to get caught. They said that if you watch the video of it blowing up, there obviously a missile hits it, so the guy was already dead in the car and the RV when the missile hits and blows it up. That's what people are saying. I'm serious. I'm dead serious. That's what they're saying. And they think that that's why they did this, because of again, I've been off of social media, so I haven't really dug too deeply into it. But I was on the Dill stream last night, and Dill was talking about it, and that's what he was saying. And I was like, and that was my reaction. What? So I went and looked it up, and sure as shit, that's what people are saying. That's what they're saying. Is that if
it was a way to destroy ballots? Can't you just use a paper shredder?
Right. Why would they do that?
Why do you need to blow up a fucking AT&T communications center to burn paper?
Stage this whole thing. Well, because you would think, because that would draw even more attention to you. This is national news now.
Right.
So it's obviously very silly. At least things that I've looked into. I haven't dug too deep yet, but that's what they're saying. That's what the claims are. And
now, he was a nut job. His dad worked there. He knew it was a vital part of the communications infrastructure in that area, and it obviously wasn't that well. I mean, I guess it was well thought out. He pretty much accomplished whatever. He blew up the truck, yeah. So I mean, I guess like mission accomplished there. But I don't know if he,
he's mentally ill for why. I mean, everybody's saying that. I mean, people knew that he was. And, very nice, but mentally ill. But, nice didn't have anything to do. Again, the guy's goal wasn't to kill people. He went out of his way to make sure nobody died. Except for him. And who knows? He could have killed himself while he's in the RV, and then when it exploded, body parts everywhere, whatever. That's fine. Maybe he was dead when it exploded. That's kind of what people are alluding to. But it wasn't hit by a missile.
Right.
Like, that's
how do you even do that in like a place with like tall buildings? Like, you'd have to like come up and then come down. Well, you know what I mean? And like, I don't know.
I mean, there's people
I would think that would be a pain in the ass to do the trajectory for.
Yeah, it just doesn't even make it doesn't make any sense. It's
well, people can say it. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to doubt the newsworthiness of Dill's live stream.
Well, Dill wasn't saying that that's what happened. He's saying that's what people believe happened.
Yeah.
He was just kind of talking about it, but yeah, so I want to make it sound like Dill's a crazy person. He is, but not in that way. But Dill's cool. We like Dill. But no, so but other people, a lot of people are saying that. I mean, it's not just like, because I was looking through some like comments sections of things today, and I mean, I didn't look for very long, but there was a couple of people that were like, well, this is by the Democrats because they don't want to get caught in their election fraud. And it's like, oh my God, your fucking guy lost. Get over it.
Right.
It's just Jesus Christ. Not everything's a conspiracy, guys. So that's my opinion on it. So yeah.
Did you happen to hear about the bowling alley shooting in Illinois?
Well, no, because like I said, I have not been on social media, really.
Yeah, so that's another interesting story from this weekend. It was a gunman went into a Rockford, Illinois bowling alley, home of Cheap Trick. Not necessarily the bowling alley, but Rockford, Illinois in general.
Sure.
And
probably the bowling alley.
Yeah, I don't know their if
their origin story.
Right. But yeah, ex-Army Ranger Duke Webb went in there and shot a whole bunch of people and killed a bunch of kids that were walking in there to pick up food. And very crazy. He'd been diagnosed with PTSD and got there at like 7:00 on Saturday and shot the place up pretty fucking good. But it's interesting, like, this isn't funny, but like, it's just interesting when you read the accounts of what happened. Is like, there shouldn't have been anyone in the bowling alley. Bowling alley is supposed to be closed.
Okay.
The bar that like he walked into was supposed to be closed. Like, those are not supposed, because of COVID. You know what I mean? And they're trying to act like, oh, the bowling alley was closed, but there was people there picking up food. It's like, God damn, this bowling alley in Rockford, Illinois must be like the food, like, I don't know if they live in a food desert or something.
They might.
But the fact that there was 25 people there that night picking up food when this guy walked in and started shooting up the place. But yeah, that's another in a long line. The guy had done 3 tours in Afghanistan, and then was a Green Beret and walked into a bowling alley and shot the fucking shit out of the place, and targeted the high school kids first, which is fucking dark. The day after Christmas.
The day after. This was the 26th. Oh, okay. Well,
mm-hmm.
I don't know. So it's not that I haven't heard about it. It's just that it hasn't been. There's been so much news coming out the last couple of days. We've got the Nashville guy, we've got the bowling alley shooting, we've got, of course, the stimulus going on, and the new strain of coronavirus. So
yeah, that's fucking that's not cool.
Yeah, so I don't know. 2020 is just going out with a fucking bang. I'll tell you that. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not good. And today's
I noticed that the other night when I was on my back porch having a cigarette. There was a full moon in the sky.
It's a full moon and Cancer even, so it's extremely emotional. So if you're depressed right now, that's why. It's not, and probably the holidays also for some people. But yeah, it's it'll be better. It'll get better.
Yeah. Other than that, like my weekend and my Christmas in general was pretty low key. The kids were happy. Good. Work. It's kind of a trying time because we're getting below freezing here in the Midwest. We got a shit ton of snow tonight, so that's always a bummer. We're having to deal with.
That sucks. You almost kind of live in the future because like I know that snow's coming my way.
Yeah, we deal with that. We deal with that a lot because my wife's family's in Fort Wayne, and my son's there now, and like we're like, okay, the weather we get tonight, they'll have to be driving in tomorrow afternoon.
Oh, yeah, right. I know, yeah, exactly. So I'm not looking forward to that snow when it comes. But hey, that's okay. It's wintertime. We're Midwesterns. We're used to it.
Right?
You're a stranger to that shit.
At this point, yeah, I'm not one of those people that bitches about the fucking weather, but it's just with whenever it gets below freezing for like multiple days, I'm always like concerned about fucking pipes breaking and stuff. And
yeah,
that's kind of like occupies my mindset. But yeah, and I guess the other thing is like just trying to figure out like moving into the end of the end of the year, kind of looking forward to 2021 since this is our New Year's Eve special.
Yeah.
Uh, just looking at the next year and being like, well, what the fuck am I gonna do? You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of stuff kind of like on my plate, and looking at like what projects I'm gonna do, what projects I'm not gonna do. I
Maybe some
spent the whole month.
introspection as to what you have done.
Right, but I mean, like, I spent the whole month of November doing that, writing all that stuff for NaNoWriMo, and it's like, okay, well, do I spend a couple months working on that?
Yeah.
Do I kind of really want to get back into filmmaking again. This year we did a movie for the 48-hour film project, and that led into the second unit stuff on the People's Joker. So that wasn't, in the middle of the pandemic, you get 2.5 film shoots. Oh, and we're filming this weekend for my buddy's making a Killer Santa Claus movie.
Oh.
And yeah, and he's coming over and shooting some stuff where me and my kid open up a Christmas present, and there's a severed head in there, and we scream. It's just like a fucking cutaway scene. It's part of a montage. But yeah, so I mean, I've kind of been active with that stuff this year too. And it's like, there's always like, okay, well, do we want to try to do something bigger in 2021? Do I want to like write something? Do I want to, use this kind of winter to like do pre-production and then film in the spring or whatever?
Right. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at the moment. Well, especially with the documentary, we're kind of on hold because of the winter.
Right.
And, because most of the things that we do are, outside. So, we're kind of just waiting and seeing what's going to happen. But yeah, but right now is the time for me to work on other things. And I've definitely got other things going on. So, I don't know. I wish I could look that far ahead, though. I just can't. I can't even imagine it. This year's been so weird. My sense of time doesn't exist anymore.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to like meticulously plan out the next 3 months, but like you said, like if you know that like, okay, we're doing the Mothman documentary, we're probably not gonna film any new content with it till March.
Mhm,
right?
right.
So then what could I do in January? What could I do in February? Right before the pandemic hit, I had gotten back into playing music again, both with the Christian rock band and
Wow.
also I was jamming with some old bandmates, and we were gonna put together a cover band, or I don't know what the fuck we were gonna do with it, but that all came to a screeching halt when
Right.
Corona hit.
Yep.
So now that me and the drummer's a firefighter, and I work in I do what I do, and we're both gonna get the vaccine pretty quick. So we're like, well, fuck, once we both get the vaccine, like we should just start fucking practicing a bunch.
Yeah, you can.
And
You should.
yeah, and he wants to start a cover band called Whiskey Business,
Okay.
like
Okay.
Risky Business.
Yeah.
And, the promo pictures will be us in our underwear, tidy whities. Like, you ever see that? You have no fucking clue what I'm talking about right now, do you?
No.
Tom Cruise made a movie called Risky Business. They fuck on the train, where it's him and Rebecca De Mornay, and his parents go out of town. It's actually set in Illinois, like Chicago suburbs. And he hires Rebecca De Mornay, who's a hooker, to fuck him for the weekend while his parents are gone. And she steals like this Fabergé egg, and he has to get her back, and they screw on an L train. And there's that scene with Old Time Rock and Roll where he slides out into the camera and he's got his tidy whities on and a
Yeah,
t-shirt.
everybody knows that scene.
That's okay. So that's from Risky Business.
Right.
And the idea for this band was called Whiskey Business. And it would be like rock and roll / country cover band, because country music's fucking big here in Chicago, if you can believe that shit. And do that. And then for the promo picture, though, we would mimic that scene from Risky Business with the three of us in our tidy whities and the sunglasses, which is funny because you wouldn't want to see any of us in our tidy whities.
Oh. Okay.
But
all right.
I don't know. Whatever. It's
You can.
spent way too much
I don't
time
know what you're
explaining.
talking about. Doesn't mean that other people don't know what you're talking about. Jesus, I'm at least trying to play the part. I don't know you.
I'm sorry to put you in that position. Okay. All right. How was your Christmas?
It was good. It was a good time. Yeah, I mean, we have small Christmas with me and my daughter. My mom, she works in the medical field, so she always works on Christmas Day. So we plan a separate day to do that, and we did that over the weekend, and it was pretty low maintenance actually. I've spent the last couple of days really doing kind of a bunch of nothing. It's been weird. I don't, but at the same time, doing everything. It's strange. Because I haven't really had time to like I got some gifts and things, but like I haven't even like I wanted to like take a picture and like show people my stuff because I actually got some really cool stuff. Not trying to brag, but just as a way to be like, look at this cool stuff. But I haven't even been able to do that. Now I feel like it's too late. I've missed my mark. And but I haven't even like touched anything that I got. And I'm like, I got some like video games, I got some movies, and I haven't even
What games you get?
What did you ask what games I got or what movies I got?
Yeah. What
Right,
games?
my games. Yeah, so I actually got I got Oddworld, Abe's Odyssey, except it's Oddworld New and Tasty. It's a remake for the Switch.
Okay.
Oddworld is a great game. Um it's basically about like an alien that's stuck in a Soylent Green type of situation. So
I remember the original on the
yeah. So it's
Genesis.
just a remake of the original, yeah. And then I got Rune Factory 4 for the Switch. So I'm pretty excited to get into some nerding. And then like I said, I got a couple movies and different things that I need to just, deal with. And I got a bunch of books too, and I'm stoked about it. So my mom got me this, which is surprising because my mom kind of doesn't take what I do very seriously. So she's, she just doesn't like the whole Mothman thing. She's just like, well, there's Mothman documentaries out there. You're not doing anything new. I'm like, okay. So we don't talk about like the things that I do, for a living. And like, she doesn't quite understand. Like, I know we were kind of getting into a political argument the other day, and we were talking about how much I realistically work. And it's basically my entire life. All of my hobbies are my job. So that's all I do. Right. And anyway, but she got me this Mothman sweatshirt, and so that's pretty cool. But it's Mothman, but then like on the background, it's like rainbow colored, like, and then a black Mothman in the center of like this rainbow circle. And I'm like, it's a gay Mothman sweatshirt. I'm like, is this like my mom's way of being like, I know.
I support it. Yeah.
Because I don't hide my sexuality at all. I'm not totally gay, but I don't hide my sexuality at all. We just don't talk about it. It's just nothing we talk about. So I'm like, or is this just, she just saw it and thought that it looked nice? I don't know. Either way, I'm going to wear the shit out of it. So
That's awesome.
But it was good. No, it was good. The family thing worked out well. We got some surprise gifts for my daughter, so it worked out well. But it was a good time. And then I'm doing a New Year's Eve party in a couple of days. So
nice.
Hopefully that works out well. I'm a little nervous about it. We definitely have a spike in numbers. But it's not. It's just the usual suspects. Now, I usually have a party for every single holiday. That's my norm, and it's always too many people. And it's everybody. I invite everybody, and everybody comes. And these parties this year aren't like that. They're very, very, very much scaled down. It's always under 10 people. So I mean, can I call it a party? I don't know, but
sure, of course.
Yeah. I mean, it's what people I care about. It's people that I know take the guidelines and whatnot seriously. I mean, to me, it's fine. We're using common sense here. It's not like we're just having a free for all because I'm high risk. I'm very high risk. So they all know that, they can't come to my party if they've put themselves in some type of compromising situation. So, but I'm looking forward to that. It'll be nice to kind of let go of the year. But yeah, I haven't really done anything this week. So, oh well. nothing pertaining to work or anything. I've had a lot of new contacts lately. People are pulling me into the Dogman and Bigfoot world. Thanks, Ryan. And I'm so out of my league right now. I mean, these people, God, some of them, and I really probably shouldn't make fun. But my God, you guys, some of you guys got to get it together. Like, there's nothing in that picture that you sent. Nothing. There's nothing there. I promise. There's nothing there in that picture or that video.
That's too vague. At this point, I'd ask you to describe the picture that you're referencing, but I think the audience already knows that there's nothing there.
Just they're blobs.
Right, just imagine a picture. Imagine a picture with nothing there.
It's a tree, right? That's what it is. It's a picture of a tree, and they're like, "Don't you? Oh, you can see it clear as day." And it's like, no, there's nothing there. And you know, and these things are probably not Nephilim, guys. Get over that. I just
Oh,
gotta
that's interesting.
put it out there. A lot of people think that a lot of these creatures are Nephilim. That's the popular belief, and I'm like, I'm blown away by it.
I don't. That's so. How does that track? Because like, there's nothing. When I think of like fallen angels or creatures with angelic DNA, I don't think of like anything that's like Dogman is. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
that's.
right. Well, because they can, I guess they can shapeshift. I don't fucking know. You know, I don't really know. Okay, in all fairness, I don't know how it all works yet. I am trying to keep an open mind and learn. But when I hear things like how big it was the Bigfoot creatures that were the serpents in the story of Adam and Eve that were tempting Eve, it just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't.
Well, yeah, because there's nothing reptilian about Bigfoot. It's a Bigfoot seem to
Right.
be the antithesis of. If you had to pick three qualities to describe a reptilian, I would think each one of those qualities that most people would mention would run completely counter to how you would characterize a Bigfoot.
Yeah,
You know
right.
what I
It
mean?
doesn't, right. Exactly.
Fucking the hair, like first and foremost. Like I don't know.
Big human like body, but long, little skinny body. You know, it's weird. So, you know, I don't know. I'm trying to keep an open mind. I don't want to be that person because I know what it's like to be proven wrong, and I have been before, but guys, I'm just not.
Well,
Send me
what's
your
interesting?
evidence, though. Send me all your evidence, please. If you have stuff that you think's gonna rock my world and change my mind, I invite you to challenge me on it because I would love to see it.
Well, something that is kind of interesting to consider is that if you listen, if you follow the biblical story of the Garden of Eden, is that the way that we know serpents to look now is the way that they are made to look as punishment for tempting Eve with the apple, right? When God realizes that Adam and Eve have eaten from the tree of knowledge and they say, what the fuck happened? And they blame it on the snake. As a punishment, God transforms the snake into its current form. You're going to slither on your belly. You're going to bite at the dust. You're going to eat dust, and you're going to bite at the man's heel, and you're going to basically took away its arms and legs. So then what did it look like before? Now, some people say, okay, well, that's a Komodo dragon or that's a Gila monster or whatever,
Right.
right? Just
Sure.
those kind of like lizards that walk around on four legs. And that's the distinction. That's ancient man making the distinction between a four-legged lizard and a snake, right? Although some people say no, that the serpent was a reptilian, a lizard man, however you want to characterize it. They don't say Bigfoot, but that doesn't mean that it couldn't have been Bigfoot like,
You
and that
know, yeah.
yeah, and that was what it was transformed into. So I don't know. I
And
think there's
also,
definitely some possibility. I'm sorry, go on.
I would say, you know, challenge me, bring on the evidence, and I will absolutely look over it. But you know, I'm going to compare it to my own things and things that I've found to be what I believe are true. You know, but I would say I'm probably the most open-minded professional, one of the most open-minded professionals in the field. You know, bring it to me and I'll look at it. But if someone could please explain it better, maybe there's something I'm missing. I don't know. But I don't see these things being fallen angels. Religion for one kind of fucks up the whole science behind it. And so, you know, but maybe I don't know, maybe there's something I don't know about. You know, maybe there's hidden books that are not there or whatever. I don't know.
Well,
So
yeah, there's the Apocrypha, the Book of Enoch, and stuff like that.
yeah, there
Um,
is, and I haven't read those.
I have. They're very dry. They're not
So
necessarily.
I
They,
don't. I'm not into
I
that.
bought them and was very interested. I actually this year I tried to sit down with them and I was like, who gives a shit? Um,
Like it sounds interesting, but I have the Book of Enoch. It's boring. It's
right.
boring as fuck. I can't sit down and read it. It's so boring. So I don't know. One more thing I want to bring up before we get into this, keep forgetting about it, but it is very interesting. So here in Ohio, we have something called the Serpent Mound. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
Oh,
Um,
100%. Yeah.
yeah, so we've got that, and it's, you know, pretty big and famous, and it's, you know, basically a big like a giant snake eating an egg that's like been kind of
Right.
carved into the ground. Well, probably not carved, probably built up into the ground. We really don't
Yeah.
know a lot about it. Um,
I
what?
could.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say I could talk to you about it. We could do the whole show on the Serpent Mound right now because I'm very. Graham Hancock wrote a book about it. Well, it features very heavily in one of his books, but I actually wanted to go there so fucking bad, and it's not too far from Fort Wayne.
We're going
Um,
soon. Yeah, we're gonna be.
yeah, let me know because I would be I bugging my wife about going to this thing forever. But yeah, go on. I'm sorry.
So anyway, yeah. So the Serpent Mound. Well, we'll just for story's sake for the moment for people that don't know what it is. It right now it pretty much belongs to the Indians or the Native Americans. I'm sorry. And they so they lay claim to it. It's their land, but it's a big historical figure because it probably came from them. And there's some theories about what it might be or why it's there.
Or how
Anyway,
old it is.
yeah, there's a lot of up in the air about it. So they're there, the Native Americans are there, and some people live on the land, and a group of I guess very extreme Christians decided to show up this past weekend and cleanse the place of negativity, and it caused a big old fight, and they left. But yes, I mean they were pretty much defiling sacred land. When they were trying to rid the energy or whatever with prayer. I mean that's what that is, right? I mean it's like a turf war, isn't it? Like between religions.
I mean, I guess if you're a native, yes, even though it's not
It's
causing
wrong,
physical harm, if
right?
you believe in one story of its purpose, then you could see what they were doing with their, even though it's like two groups praying at each other, and that
Yeah,
seems kind to an outside third party that seems kind of like, well, is anyone really fucking doing anything here? But
right.
I mean, if you believe in it, and if you believe either side of that, then you have to see what the other side is doing is running counteractive to your point. That site's very interesting because popular there Graham Hancock wrote a book about basically immigration to America, and when European and I guess Africa is like where mankind kind of started and then came through the Bering Strait and all that shit.
Yeah.
So like there's some debate over when mankind actually settled in the United States. And most archaeologists will tell you between 15 and 20,000 years, which that in and of itself runs counterpoint to what what fundamentalist Christians think because of they think
Right.
the earth itself is only 8,000 years old.
Yeah.
Um, but people that kind of like, okay, yeah, whatever, they'll tell you that mankind settled in North America between 15 and 20,000 years. However, there's evidence at that specific site to suggest that it's actually more closer to 100 to 150,000 years that
Wow.
mankind came to North America. Yeah, but once again, you're dealing with carbon dating and
Yeah.
inexact science, and there's also stuff there that how the Great Lake, we talked about this on a previous episode, but the Great Lakes were formed with like by glaciers kind of moving south from Canada
Right.
during a warming period or potentially after a an impact event where something had hit the earth and it fucked with the weather and shit. So there was kind of a great flood that happened across the United States and parts of the world, and that's how some people think the Grand Canyon was formed. And there's also evidence in those mounds, like with the way that the soil is sat, to suggest that this happened. It's a very, very interesting site.
Hmm. Wow.
And it's nice because it's like one of the few areas that is accessible to Chicago. It's not really that far away. I think it's like a 6-hour drive or something. And using Fort Wayne as a stopping point, when I was reading Graham Hancock's book, I was like, we got to go here. Like, it's not that fucking far away, and it's public property. It's like there's parts of it that maybe Native American
Yeah,
kind
it's
of owned, but
close. You can't just walk on, right? Especially right now with the coronavirus, you can't just walk on the property.
right, because I think it's a national park too, isn't it,
It
or
is.
something?
Well, yeah, and
Yeah,
it's a landmark of sorts, so like it's protected. It's protected land. But
right.
there's trails and stuff all around it. I mean, there's other areas that you can go to around the mounds, but you can't actually just go and access it whenever you want to. It has to be very, very special occasions. We also have these other giant mounds here that are Indian burial grounds, and
Yeah.
so we have I keep saying Indian. Fuck, man. I'm sorry. I'm trying. I'm learning.
Dude,
But
there's like 15 of them left, and they ain't listening to this show. Don't worry about it.
just I'm trying. The Native Americans. But we have a lot of lore here. A lot of history here for that kind of stuff. And so that happens to be just one of them. And so it was interesting because, like I said, the place is closed. So like the group that went there, they were there illegally to begin with, and they went and they were, trying to pray away the negative energy of the place because they think it's cursed. But
That's
if you're doing
the
that's wrong. It's wrong because it's already, to the Native Americans, it's already seasoned with whatever history it might have,
right.
to disrupt it. So
Well, that's the American Midwest for you. It's one great
yeah,
big fucking Indian burial ground.
it really
The
is. You're right.
whole place.
You're right.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not funny. It's fucked up. It's wrong.
No,
Shit.
especially those mountains. That's what we have. We have
Yeah.
a bunch of those downstate, and you know, they're kind of all over the Midwest. But
They're
that's
cool. I mean, it's a
yeah,
cool it's a cool place to go to, but it's still pretty because it is, different than just a traditional cemetery. But it's still very sad. So don't take your dead children there. That's for sure, and try to resurrect them because I heard it doesn't turn out well. Did that just that one just fell flat, didn't it? That's wow. Cool.
I was completely distracted by something.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
That's where they're watching porn while we do the show, I guess. Or...
No. Although I had the house to myself this weekend, and I figured out how to fucking like cast from my phone onto the TV in the back
Oh.
room, and oh my god, it's a life changer. It's a fucking game changer, man. Oh my god, it was awesome.
One of my exes did that with his Roku. So he's got, Rokus throughout all of his house, and your Rokus are all connected together. Like when you get one, they're all connected together. So he downloaded this porn app on there, and so of course, but he didn't realize that they're all connected together. So it shows up everywhere in his dad's room and his kids' rooms.
Yeah, I that happens, and that
Yeah.
happens to a lot of people, and I knew I actually last story, and then we can get to the show topic. I knew somebody, and her dad was on dialysis, and they were fairly well off. They were kind of like rich people, so he had his own dialysis machine in the house. They had an extra bedroom where they put it in and shit, right?
Yeah.
So he goes in for his dialysis treatment, and brings his Chromebook or his iPad with him or whatever. He goes like, all right, well, I gotta go to dialysis. I'm going there now. They're like, okay. So he goes in there, and then like 3 minutes later, the TV in the front room just starts fucking switches over to like tit fucking porn or something. And her and her mom were sitting there watching it. And the mom's like, well, like, leave him alone. He's going through a lot right now. And she was like, yeah, I guess. I mean, he's in the fucking other room giving dialysis treatment. Like, I guess we should let him watch his tit fucking porn. Like,
Sure. Well, if your kid's happening, you just be like, oh, I'm just watching National Geographic.
hey man, it's that's a tough hour to sit through. You know what I mean? It's like if you want to sit there and you do what you got. At the end of the day, we're all just trying to get by here.
Right.
And,
Exactly. I've already said it. I don't kink shame. That's that's
no, absolutely not.
That's funny. Okay, well, how do we want to start this going current to backwards? Do we want to start earlier? Do we want to go, I'll just get into it. Okay, guys. So, one interesting thing about being human, especially since forever, is that there's always been some type of speculation that there's going to be a doomsday. Right? So we have these I mean it's predicted everywhere. Every religious text has some type of doomsday. And then we have these events that happen that people are like, "Oh my god, it's going to be the end." We just kind of had something silly. We had, the 21st came and went. We had the Christmas star, and it wasn't quite doomsday, but people thought that there was going to be this big transformative event that happened, and it didn't. So nothing happened. Nobody got superpowers. But this has been going on forever. Ever since we've been around, we've always had some type of event going on that's going to inevitably be the end of the world. And it hasn't happened yet. So, but Pat, you've kind of had a thing for this, haven't you? This is kind of your bag, isn't it? End of the
Yeah,
world.
I mean, I think I read somewhere once that the reason some people become so preoccupied with the world ending is that they can't imagine it going on after they die. So every generation or certain generations really do latch on to these apocalypse myths because it's almost reassuring to know that you'll be there when it ends. Because if it doesn't, then it's just going to go on without you. And some people can't wrap their fucking head around that. So
Yeah,
it's
well,
almost comforting to think that as
everybody will
much as
walk with you.
yeah, some people might find. I mean, I was as a kid approaching the year 2000. I was 19. I was born in 1981, so I was 19 when 2000 hit. So I was old enough to have kind of lived life a little bit and kind of done that thing. And I had a lot of anxiety leading up to it because there was so much shit on the news, or not the news, but like 14 entertainment or whatever media, kind of making prophecies as to what might happen. And it was something that, like, I guess, you think about what do you find more psychologically disturbing? The fact that you're going to die and the world and mankind will just march on completely fine without you, or the fact that you have to be there and have a front row seat as everything burns and crumbles around you.
Yeah,
I, for one, am perfectly fine with the party going on after I leave. I find that much more comforting than the idea of I have to sit here and watch the end happen,
that's
right?
true. Yeah.
And some people aren't like that, though. Some people want to, and maybe it's on a subconscious level, and that's why it manifests itself so much in art and literature and stuff.
Hmm.
But like, there's a part of us, I feel like those are the two kind of poles that we're torn towards. Not wanting to see the end, but kind of at the same time hoping that the end comes, because then we don't have to feel like we meet the same death as everyone else.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, well, it's a definitely a much smaller scale, but like my best friend, we talk about it a lot. And we kind of fight over who's going to die first because both of us are like, well, I have to die first because I can't live without you. So, but it's like a catch-22 because I don't want to die first and then know that you're just going to be miserable. So we joke about that. It's like, one of us is going to die and then the other one's going to die shortly after. So, like mates. But yeah, I mean, that's true. That is an interesting perspective. I never thought about that. I just figured, just from a religious standpoint alone, I mean, people know that, it's coming, and they believe that, the end is going to happen at some point. They just don't know when. They just don't want to be the bad guy when it does, I guess. I don't know. But it's gone on forever. And it goes on, not just, we have these huge events, which is kind of, these bigger events, which is what we're going to talk about today. But then we have these smaller scale events, like, for example, the Heaven's Gate people.
Yeah. Did you watch that documentary?
No.
It's pretty good.
I bet it is. That's what I should have done. I don't know why I didn't. I haven't done anything the last couple. Nothing. Anyway, but that's a smaller group of people who probably genuinely thought that the world was going to end. Right? I mean, this is how they thought that they would get their salvation, and they went and committed mass suicide or whatever it was that they did.
Sure.
But that's basically it. But then we have larger events like the more recent was the 2012 thing where everybody was talking about it. But I don't really know of big events that predate Y2K. That's the first one I remember, I guess. So in my lifetime, I've had the two. I don't know. Did you guys have something before Y2K or?
I mean, there's the Book of Revelation, which kind of was a consistent. I mean, if you look at like Nostradamus and shit like that, like there's people that thought that Kennedy being assassinated was one of the was alluded to in the Book of Revelation, right? The three antichrists that are supposed to rise up. There were supposed to be three false prophets, and Napoleon was one of them. Hitler was one of them. and then I don't know who the third one. There hasn't been a third one, but they, you know, it
Obama.
was
Obama
right.
was for a long time.
I mean, so there, yeah, there's always people try. There's always data that people try to manipulate to
Sure.
suggest this and that. But I
Anytime a
think
big event happens, I think a lot of people are like, "It's the end of the world." The coronavirus pandemic, everybody's like, "Oh, it's the end of the world. It's end times. It's a plague."
right.
You know,
Or like the
so
environmental collapse, which I'm not trying to say that I don't think that, you know,
that's
fucking
not
climate
helpful.
change is real and shit. But I think definitely there were some dates that were thrown around with that have proven to be not true. And I think there's some people that, you know, people like to make predictions. It's real sexy, you know. And the problem is that eventually you're proven wrong or right, you know. But most of the time, people are proven wrong, and then they just make more predictions, and you go from there. People tend to, you know, uh, we tend to be kind of forgiving. I think when folks, you know, are wrong about the end of the world, we don't hold it against them.
Yeah. So I think so. Like I said, I remember. You know, I remember Y2K. I was alive. I was 9, but I was here. So I was very young. So I didn't really have like a big understanding of like what was going on. All I knew was that Will Smith released an entire album based off of the Millennium called Millennium, and it's probably one of the best albums in the world. Um, legit,
Just the roller
legit.
skate to it.
So yes, I mean legit. The Millennium album that was the first CD I ever bought, and it was, and I still have it, and I listen to it as an adult. So there's a little slice of my life. People, everybody that thinks that I listen to hardcore death metal, I don't. I fucking listen to Will Smith
Yeah, I guess.
from 1999. Um, but no, yeah. So I just had a basic understanding of kind of what was going on. I mean, of course, everybody was talking about it, and kind of more so what it was then was that all of our technology was going to fail. It was all going to shut off. I don't really understand why.
So, the Y2K bug, it refers to events related to the formatting and storage of calendar data for dates beginning with the year 2000. Problems were anticipated. Some arose. It's one of those things where you don't know if the whole thing was overblown and fabricated, or if because we made such a big deal about it that we were able to resolve the issue before it got even worse.
Okay.
I think overall the U.S. spent no, the estimated cost was like $300 billion was spent to try to prevent the Y2K shutdown, but about half of that was with the United States alone. And we can look at like what actually went wrong and say, well, nothing really went wrong to justify the spending of that money. But the flip side of that is, or did nothing go wrong because we spent the money, right? Because
Okay.
but it also kind of gave us a chance to overhaul our infrastructure and update things, because at that point, so what happened was when computers became like integrated into our culture and society and stuff, like in the 70s, how they would record dates was just by using the last 2 digits of the year, right? So
Sure.
instead of putting in like 1988, they would just put in 88.
Right.
Well, and then when you hit 2000, they were afraid that, especially like financial software, or air traffic controller, things that kept dates, like where dates were specific in their programming, that those would go back to think that it was the year 1900, and that there would be some kind of catastrophic failure. And there wasn't. But once again, was it because we spent all this time and money kind of preparing things for this, right?
Well, so did people just kind of run with that then? Because what I had always heard was that like all the power grids were supposed to shut down. We were going to have no electricity, and it was going to fling us into a very dystopian kind of world.
Right. So, like, remind me before we move off this topic, remind me to get to the Alex Jones stuff. But I think what it was just kind of like this perfect storm where people were already kind of hinky about the year 2000 and what it could mean, whether or not was Jesus going to come back. There was supposed to be something about the positioning of stars above the pyramid, and there was all these different fucking theories, right? In fact, I remember one special that Fox ran that suggested that in the Pyramid of Giza, that there's like, if you look at the way the shafts are built, there's like a shaft that goes from like the main burial chamber up into like outside, and that's supposed to be how the souls or whatever escaped or went back and forth. And if you look, there's a break in the shaft every so many feet, and if you look at when it was born to where the shaft or when the pyramid was finished to where the shaft ends, it basically, if if every foot is a year or something, that's not right, but like if every inch was a year, then it's for like the shaft comes to the end at the year 2000.
Right. Okay.
And
Okay.
there's breaks in the shaft, like when Kennedy was killed and when the fucking moon landing, all this other crazy shit, right? And I remember watching the special on Fox probably like in 1999, and them saying this means something will definitely happen in the year 2000 on New Year's Eve and all this stuff, and being like, oh shit. And then 10 years later, seeing the same exact graphic used, except that end of the shaft wasn't the year 2000 anymore. That end of the shaft was the year 2012. Like, I mean, they're recycling the same shit. I remember seeing this fucking 10 years ago.
They're just like, oh, we
So,
were wrong about our calculations. It was actually this. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, like, so that there was all that kind of like paranoia and shit about the year 2000. And then on top of that, you had this legitimate issue, like this like scientific issue with like these computers, and there's like technological crash that could happen. Computers were still relatively new, but they weren't like in every home. It wasn't like today where we all have super fucking phones. So people were already kind of leery about the integration of technology in society. And then the chance that like, we've spent the past 20 years trying to shove this shit down everyone's throats and put a computer in every home and automating everything. And now there's a chance that it could just fucking turn off like that. And the banks are going to stop working and they're going to lose all our money.
Yeah. Right. It was like everything was put on this, that it was very interesting. I mean, like I said, I really didn't understand it. So of course as a kid I was nervous about what would happen, but I don't even know what I was doing that night. You know what I mean? I don't remember when it rolled over to 2000.
Yeah.
So it was so insignificant, because nothing happened. But I remember, being worried that something might. So I don't know, but it was a very, to me, in my mind, maybe I glorified it a little bit more than what it was or what it was being talked about, or maybe it was just my family environment. But it seemed to be a pretty big deal for people. So that's,
Yeah.
I think that's interesting.
Yeah, that was the Y2K bug, is how they referred to it. That to me was the X factor. And I know I mentioned this on a previous show, but I already kind of knew that as far as like supernatural chicanery goes, that 2012 was going to be the year to watch out for. So I didn't think the pyramids were going to open or the aliens were going to come down or anything like that.
Yeah.
I thought that if any of that was going to happen, that 2012 was when it could happen. However, with the power grid shutting down or anything, that that could happen because that was technology based, and that was because of man's hubris and oversight, and those things can come back and bite you on the ass at any given time,
Yeah.
So, and it
Yeah.
didn't, they I did some research on it, and like I said, America they estimate that 300 billion was spent worldwide on preparing for Y2K. And there was countries such as Italy, Russia, South Korea did relatively less than we spent half of that budget. We spent $150 billion on preparing for this shit. And you have other countries that would spend 13 or hardly anything at all. And at the end of the day, the United States experienced no more or less issues than, say, Italy or Russia, right? So it kind of the whole thing in general fizzled out. But at the same time, we don't know if maybe we prevented some stuff. Was it money well spent? Was it a preemptive alarm? Maybe the lack of problems that we experience worldwide stems from the fact that we spent so much time getting prepared for it.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, I mean, so 2012 was kind of more my thing, because I was, by that time I just had my daughter, so I was like 21 or something like that. When it was approaching, but it was a couple of years. Like I remember people talking about this like all the way back in like 2009. And around that time in my life, I was very embarrassing, and I was I was really I was really big into like the deep web and a lot of the shit on there. There's a lot of really interesting stuff on there, but there's also a lot of bullshit on there. And so I was really into like this new world order thing, and basically what the Illuminati and shit is now, and so I mean it kind of held a lot of water. My best friend's brother was really into this, and he was, always the older brother. We all looked up to him, so he was really all about it. He thought for sure the world was ending on in 2012, and I
What
kind of
type of ending? Or
so it was all based around this specific star or planet or something.
Nibiru, Planet X?
Yes, and how it was going to collide with us, and it lined up with the end of the Mayan calendar, and it was just,
Sure.
divinely guided, and yes. And what's interesting is that, Pat and I, we kind of, we try to get the show together a little bit before, and, Pat had mentioned me researching, and talking specifically about 2012. And so I'm like researching it, and there's really not a lot on it. And I'll get to that in a minute. But like you mentioned that planet or Planet X or Nibiru or whatever it is, couldn't find anything about it. It was wild. Anyway, so yeah, at the time, a lot of people really bought into this. NASA was putting out articles. They're like, well, the world's not going to end because of this, this, and this. Which of course they'll say that. They don't want you to panic when the world's ending. If they
Right.
knew, they probably wouldn't tell us, but it was a big thing. And I worked at, which I think I might have talked about on the show, or maybe I just talked to Pat about it in passing, but I know I've mentioned it. I worked at a call center at the time, and
Yeah.
and the job was calling people, doing cold calls to get donations on behalf of conservative Christian views. And the fuck that we'd had a script that we had to read off of, and it was fucked up. It was like, oh, the end is coming. It's it's December now. You need to pay us $300 to buy your salvation, or God's not going to let you in heaven. And all kinds of fucked up. It was wrong. I mean, that's not exactly what it said, but that's what it was implying. So it was it was wrong. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, it was a big thing. And and then of course the 21st rolls around and nothing happens, and we're still here. But what's interesting about this, and I've wanted to talk about this on the show for a while because I think it's pretty neat, is that there is a theory out there that the world did end in 2012. Have you seen this?
No.
No, you have not. Wow. So 2012 was also the year. It was a huge there was a huge scientific discovery, and that was the Higgs boson.
Yes, the Hadron Collider.
Yep. And so what people think, because you haven't really heard anything about it since then, right? It was a big deal. And they're like, we're making mini black holes over here. We're going to make a mini black hole. And then now you don't hear anything about it. So what they think is that they turned on the Hadron Collider, and it made a black hole, and the black hole sucked everything up here, right? And so the reason why we still have consciousness is a couple of theories. Maybe maybe we died, maybe we're in hell, maybe we're in heaven, maybe we were shipped off to a different universe, and it explains the Mandela effect and why we have these false memories, because we were moved into a different dimension. But it really goes into like great detail. It's pretty amazing. But one of the first things that they had, and it's just a Twitter thread. It's just somebody on Twitter that threw all this shit together, and it's great. But I'll send you a link to it so you can read it, but it's long. But what they said in the beginning of it was that they were thinking about how back in 2012, everybody was talking about the world ending, and now, nobody really talks about that anymore. But then when you go try to look stuff up about it, it's kind of hard to find. There's really nothing about it, and there isn't that much. There really isn't. When you look up like 2012, even if you look up 2012 conspiracy, it's like about like the elections and just other stuff. That's what you get first. Eventually you'll find the other stuff. It's out there, but it is kind of strange. And so it's like, well, is that because they know what they've done and they've hidden it? I don't know. It's a very
I think it could
So,
be because like just the algorithm of the internet, like, you know, stuff that's what was trending in 2012, fucking
yeah,
2012, what was trending in 2011, 2012, you know, all this stuff was it was in the forefront of our minds, and it was kind of like this collective apprehension
that's
about what's going
true.
to happen. And well, what's interesting is that like, dude, like it very much became a marketing tool because listen,
Yes.
I knew about it because of the Invisibles, which is hopefully we'll get somebody an upcoming show. We'll have one of the guys from that podcast on the King Mobcast. If you're going to listen to two podcasts, if you're listening to one podcast each week, listen to ours. If you're going to listen to a second one, they have a monthly podcast, but listen to theirs where they break down episodes of the issues of the Invisibles comic, which I fucking absolutely adore.
That was
And
very smooth. That was a good plug.
right, thank you. Thank you. Uh, but yeah, Grant Morrison was talking about the 2012 phenomenon back in 1997. Seriously.
You were
So
saying that before, yeah, that you know
yes,
about this for a long time.
yes. So it was always there. But when you like listen, there's a lot of fucking conspiracy theories out there. There's a lot of doomsday scenarios. They didn't all get turned into movies with fucking John Cusack. Okay,
Yeah.
there was pop culture saw it as a branding opportunity, right? We had all survived 2000, but I mean, how many people fucking sold books because of because of the year 2000, because of the millennium, right?
Yeah, that's true.
How many? There was a lot of money to be made. There was a lot of fucking shit to be shilled, and I think with 2012, they just saw an opportunity to do it again, and they did it. They made a fucking movie that made a lot of money, and a lot of cranks, a lot of coast to coast AM people, guests, sold books that have since been seriously outdated. Now you're saying like, why is the internet no longer filled with people trying to sell their books about how the world's going to end in 2012? Because it didn't, right? And if I was an author that wrote some bullshit about how a fucking phantom planet was going to smash into Earth in 2012, and then I sold a shit ton of copies in 2010 and 2011, well, you realize that the marketability of that product is going to peak in 2012, because
Yeah.
once it doesn't fucking hit, no one's going to want to read that book anymore. And if I was the author of that book, I would try to bury it as much as possible because it makes me look like the fucking fraud that I am.
Yeah.
So, all these articles, all these YouTube videos, all these books, which are nothing more than fucking PDFs sold on Amazon anyway, all this stuff that was generated leading up to it, the fact that it's now completely like not there makes sense to a certain respect, because it's no longer valid. In fact, it's been
Good
proven
point.
fucking untrue. And any
Yeah.
claims that are made in there of people that say I have inside information or my calculations show me this, well, apparently you were fucking wrong. All those people were wrong. All those people made a lot of money preying on people's insecurities and fears about and apprehensions about the end of the world.
Yeah.
And if I was them, I would take whatever money I made, fucking tip my hat, and fucking sign off line. You know
Well,
what I mean?
I mean, I know because we were the church was profiting off of it.
Sure.
So they definitely were playing that card up. But then, like, I'm not sure. The church is just like, oh well, not yet, I guess, but it's coming.
Can I, you know what? Actually, I kind of wanted to bring this up when we were doing the Y2K bug. So back when this happened, Alex Jones was,
That's right. Yep.
yeah, so he was a radio show host out of Austin, Texas. He wasn't super famous, but he was getting some traction, and he was doing like a live show that night, and he was making a lot of outrageous claims about what was going on, trying to incite this type of panic. So here's a direct quote from Alex Jones on New Year's Eve 1999, or right after midnight, after the Y2K, after we had crossed over, and supposedly the Y2K bug was taking effect. This is from Alex Jones,
Right.
and he goes on to say, cash machines are failing in Britain and now other European countries. They're finding large amounts of explosives in France. Vladimir Putin who is known as Vladimir the Ruthless, using all his profanity on national TV, you name it. We won't read the profanity here, but we've got it. This person is on an unbelievable power trip and resembles a demon. He is a creature from the IMF and the World Bank and international communism. He is a former KGB head, and this information is vital, ladies and gentlemen. What we're seeing is the New World Order really come out in force. More wars have been made in the past 50 years. More wars that have been in the past 50 years are going on right now. The war in Chechnya is raging in Grozny with reports of hundreds of thousands dying. There's 20 to 40 civilians trapped in the city. Russians are being shown. Okay, he goes on. That's kind of bullshit. He talks about Russia for a
God,
bit.
Russians again.
I'll give you the first news on Y2K, the newest developments. A Pennsylvania nuclear power plant has been shut down. One of the main systems transferring the power from it failed, but they say it's not a Y2K problem. And the things are happening here in Texas as well. The shelves are empty of water and some gas stations are running out of fuel. Here in central Texas and in Minneapolis, Minnesota, shortwave radio is basically done, ladies and gentlemen. It went right off the air as I went on. So it's like this was him on the air trying to like drum up all this fucking panic. Here's another quote from him. The occupational government in Washington, D.C. has set up a huge $50 million command bunker hooked into all the FEMA boxes that can take over shortwave broadcast communications of AM and FM stations. Police and military on high alert, running around looking for supposed boogeymen and terrorists under every rock. Militaries are highly visible now. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, there are trains of military equipment moving into Austin. 2 nights ago on Wednesday night, Fox News reported the airport will be used as a massing holding facility for troublemakers or rioters here in Austin that has no history of riots. The currency is plunging. Egyptian, like he goes on and on and on. I'm not going to read all this shit, but like it's fucking crazy, and none of it was true, or it was all completely fucking skewed.
Yeah,
to make things seem more dire, more dramatic, more apocalyptic, because that's what kept people listening and paying attention and tuned in. And that's kind of what led this, like Alex Jones. And I like Alex Jones too. Don't get me wrong. I like his style.
You do like Alex Jones?
I mean, not like, I don't have like a t-shirt, but like, I don't hate him. I don't think he's, the Sandy Hook thing. I know he gets a lot of shit for that. And that was definitely in bad taste. But, there's something there's something to be said about these false flag. I don't want to say it. I want to say it. I don't think that Sandy Hook was faked, but I will say this, whenever these things happen, it's interesting that like the guns are not being taken away from people. Like there's been no gun control. If you think about how many, all the school shootings, there's not been one fucking change. You know what I mean? Nothing.
Yeah.
And we just had a shooting in, like we just talked about at the top of the show, and Rockford, and what's going to come from that?
Last year alone. I mean, Jesus, it was. I mean, this time last year, a mass shooting was just normal. It was sick.
Yeah, I mean, I live in Chicago, so we know a thing or two about gun violence. But yeah, so anyway, the Alex Jones thing, he said some banana stuff, but I think as an entertainer, he's second to none. And as far as some of his conspiracy shit, I think some of it's pretty bananas. It's always a good listen.
He can sell a paper, that's for sure. Is that, you know what? Even if he's saying complete bullshit, even if he has a bad take, people will still buy it just to read it, just to poke fun at it.
His energy is kinetic. It's very.
He's definitely got marketing down to a T. Yeah. So that's for sure. But the shit that he says, man, is just he
knows how to sell the sizzle.
Yeah, I guess so. So it's not terrible. I understand. It's hard in this field because you'll get people that people just criticize you because what you say, it just goes against the grain. It's fringe, so it's so of course you're gonna have people that are like, oh, fuck that person. I hear a lot of people talk a lot of shit about Joe Rogan, but I like Joe Rogan. I think he's pretty fair for the most part, and but it's just because of what he's saying that people don't like. And so it's like, well, so you'll get that, but then you got people like Alex Jones that's just like, guy, you can't, he hurts the field more than anything because he's so outrageous.
I think that's partly true. He takes big fucking swings.
He does.
But there's times that he's been right. There's times that listen, you know what, a good, combining those two things, a good thing is, and granted, I do not listen to InfoWars. I am not one of those people. But listen to him on Joe Rogan, because when he's on Joe
Okay.
Rogan, Joe Rogan will,
Put
every
him in
time he
place.
makes one of these outrageous claims, they'll stop. Young Jamie will pull up the fucking internet and they'll fact check it. And 9 times out of 10, whatever Alex Jones just said is fucking 100% spot on. And that
Okay.
other 1 out of 10 times when he's not, it's just him giving way to hyperbole. You know what I mean? It's just him kind of like, okay, well, I understand why you're saying that, but he's not lying, but he's just definitely skewing the truth to represent whatever point he's trying to make. But the other 9 out of 10 times, the dude's 100% fucking spot on.
I mean, the
You know
guy
what I
can't
mean?
attack people in public too. Like he can't do that shit either. Like he's crazy. He's kind of, I think mentally there's something wrong with him. I don't know if he's just been pushed to the edge. I don't know if I don't know what his deal is, but his demeanor is just not good.
Yeah, well, he's high energy. He's manic, but that's
Yeah, it's a whole
whatever.
other
I've
story.
dealt with that shit before. That's nothing new to me. Crazy doesn't scare me like it scares some people, unfortunately.
That's true. I mean, I wouldn't say it's scary. It's just, I don't know. Just he loses the respect because of shit like that, and it's like, don't do shit like that, guy. And people would listen to what you have to say. Like,
Well, I don't know if they would. I think that you know what I mean? I'd almost argue that point. I would say I don't know if they would, because I think that, he's almost got to be that outrageous just to get your attention so you listen to what he's saying. If he sat there and he politely raised his hand or tried to conduct himself like Tom Brokaw, it might not go over as well, and he might kind of be lost in the shuffle. And it's
yeah.
this larger than life persona that kind of gets the spotlight on him. And then while you're paying attention to him, now he can tell you whatever he's trying to get out there. And I don't think he's made any, the truth, the Sandy Hook thing was fucked up, and I get that. But at the same time, I don't know. I think if you honestly don't believe that this is real, that whole thing, if you think that whole thing was staged, then you're not thinking about the parents who just lost a child, right? If you're really believing that this was a false flag operation, then you're not listening. You're not thinking about the parents that just lost a child. And I think he got too caught up in the possibility of that being a hoax to really stop and consider, well, if I'm wrong about this, there's somebody that just lost a fucking child that's being now they're going to hear me saying, in the echo chamber that is the internet, people repeating me saying that your child was never real and that this is all fake. You know what I mean? And that's fucked up, and that's a tough thing to be wrong about.
I mean,
And
I don't know if
he
that was like a turning point for people following Alex Jones, but like going back to like the original point that you were saying about all this is that, the guy during Y2K was live and was causing mass panic just to cause mass
yeah,
panic.
you're right. I know.
I mean,
I
he's
know.
lying, straight up. So it's like, so it's I think it's everything together. And maybe that was just I don't follow Alex Jones, so I really don't know. But maybe that was the tipping point for people was, when he was like, well, all these kids didn't die. That was bullshit.
Well,
So, that's a story and maybe we'll cover it one day.
I
But
will say this. Hold on. The one thing that like he said about like, oh, there's a fucking nuclear power plant in Pennsylvania that went offline. It did. It did go offline.
okay, well, that's
But it came back on 15 minutes later.
About one thing.
No, he came back on 15 minutes later. It was and like I said, it's hyperbole. It's fucking sensationalism. And
Which I don't blame him, right? Like again, the guy knows how to sell a paper, but he just doesn't, he's just dishonest about the way that he does it. And I think he knows that he is. That's why he's made so much money doing it, So that's one of those things. But then there's people that will either genuinely believe what he's saying and say that everything that Alex Jones said that night was true. It was just covered up by the government. And they will, die on that hill. Or there's people that are like, great, this guy's obviously crazy. So when people come to me and start talking to me about like possibly legitimate things, I'm not going to listen because it's like Alex Jones. So it does hurt the community when you have people like that, and it's unfortunate. I mean, but you're just going to have people like that. No, no community is without its leeches, I guess. Is
Yeah, let's zoom out and talk about a meta topic here.
yeah.
Like, I think one of the interesting things about apocalypse conspiracies is that they're the most easily proven wrong.
Right, because they
Because
never
the
happened.
fucking world is still here, except for in your Higgs boson fucking snafu thing. But
See, I
like,
like that, right? Because it's different. It
right,
still implies that the world did end. I mean,
maybe it
but
did happen and we just don't know.
yeah, that's what
But
they right.
think about how many people, and this is in cryptozoology especially, um, make claims that necessarily can't be proven wrong. But
Yeah.
I think the same instinct that propels somebody to write a fucking book about 2012 to try to sell when they don't have any fucking proof of any of this shit, and they know that the bubble's going to pop at some point, just like the dot-com bubble, just like the real estate bubble. There was a 2012 bubble with all these fucking crack hacks that wrote these books that were full of fucking shit, and by the time that bubble burst, they took the money and ran anyway. Well, maybe there's a Dogman bubble too, or
Yeah.
maybe there's a fucking Bigfoot bubble, or maybe there's a Mothman bubble where these people can, because it'll never be disproven the way 2012 was.
Yeah.
There's never an expiration date on that carton of milk,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So you can create this media that's never more than like half-baked research and conjecture anyway, because you can't really fucking prove any of this stuff.
Right.
Once you start trying to make a dime off this shit, aren't you just as bad as everyone else? Because like, I mean, unless you're doing it for entertainment purposes anyway. But if you're trying to, if you're trying, and I guess that's why like cryptozoology and so much of this stuff gets a bad rap in the halls of science, is because how much science is it really?
Yeah. Well,
It's not, you know.
I would argue that, but I think there is science behind it. But you're right. The unfortunate part about it is that the only way that the science benefits and you could use it in this type of field is to prove that something is legitimate and does exist. You can't prove that it doesn't. So in this case, the absence of evidence isn't the absence of truth.
The absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence.
Thank you.
Yes, it's from the Boondocks. I think it's from something else too, but
I don't know what it's from. I didn't know that was a
it might
thing.
be a Donald Rumsfeld quote. I could be wrong. I don't know.
I mean, I'm sure I've heard it somewhere in my life to pop it off, but legitimately that was on the fly. So,
Right.
but it's true, So we can't. So you're right, because we can't disprove these things. They are kind of cash cows because we can just continue to profit off of them and whatever. And that's absolutely true. I would like to know, because I was like, while I was doing the research on the 2012 thing, I was trying to find like YouTube videos. Well, there really aren't any. There's not. They're not there.
Right.
But YouTube wasn't really. It was starting to emerge, but it wasn't nearly like it is now. People didn't watch it like they do TV, like they do now. But thinking about what you were saying, there's these people that write these books or whatever, and they know inevitably it's going to be proven wrong. It's bullshit, right? Except maybe some of these people really thought that it was going to end, and I'm very curious if I don't know. The show's getting there. Maybe it's going to be a couple years before it really gets there. But if you're one of those people that wrote a book about this or made some type of content about 2012, what are you doing now? What did that do to you? Did you believe that this was legitimate when you put that content out there? And then maybe it's messed with you a little bit. I'd like to hear about it. I'm very curious. I wish I would have thought of that before we did the show.
Well, I mean, you know what? That might not be a bad idea, is to like kind of like target research these people, find somebody that wrote the book, and then reach out to them and say, "Hey, do you want to come on and talk about it?"
Yeah,
And we'll be respectful and cool, but like, obviously, you were fucking wrong.
Obviously, right? Obviously, they were, but like I said, Pat, maybe they really believed that this was the end of the world, and so, who knows what kind of earth-shattering truth they had to live when they woke up on the 22nd.
Yeah, you know what? Honestly, I think that type of character study is something that would be better. I think you're going to find a better exploration of that in fiction than you ever would in real life. You know what I mean? Like if you think about like a character, that's a better story to write than have told to you, because chances are you're not going to find that many repentant, soul searching, 2112 hacks. They probably just moved on to the next thing and changed their fucking name or
They
used an
might have.
alias and
Yeah.
then wrote a
And I
different
mean, even if that's
ebook about something else.
even if that's the case, I would like to know, what was the thought process behind it? It was just quick money. Were you intending on making a career on it afterwards? I want to know all of it, every side. So, I mean, gosh, if you want to be relevant again, here's your chance to do that. I'm giving you a platform. Come on the show.
And we'll offer you anonymity if you want to come on and not say who you were and what you wrote, but just come on and be like, yeah, I wrote this bullshit
Yeah,
ebook and it
absolutely.
sold on Amazon and fucking took off because I came up with a good title.
Yeah, yeah.
And now I write dinosaur erotica or fucking whatever.
That's what a lot of people seem to do. They seem to go to the
I write slash fiction about the supernatural brothers porking each other in the back of that fucking Chrysler or whatever you drive
But
around
no,
in.
I mean, yeah, maybe you wrote a book, maybe you contributed to a website, maybe you just, I don't know, maybe you contributed to forums, who knows, whatever it was at the time that you were doing, that you were profiting off of this, and whatever the case is now, whether you were, shell shocked when it didn't happen, or whether you knew it wasn't going to, come on the show, we'll talk to you.
Yeah,
I'd have some questions. I think that would be really fun. So. Like I said, I'm kind of sad I didn't think of that before. Vetted people to get on, because I'm sure I could have found somebody. But we'll figure it out. We'll revisit this topic again, I think.
Yeah.
So, for the near future, what do we have right now? Do you know if we have any upcoming doomsdays yet? Any dates?
No, but one thing I wanted to talk about, because that's kind of what propelled me to want to do this topic, is the movie Greenland that came out a couple weeks ago. I don't even know when the fuck it came out because there's no movie theaters anymore. But it's on video on demand, and it's with Gerald Butler, Scott Glenn, and that the prostitute chick from Firefly, the companion or whatever her name was. But it's your basic, there's an asteroid or there's a comet that's going to fly by Earth, and debris from the comet is going to rain down and cause mass destruction. And there's one specific bit of it that's going to hit at the climax of the movie and basically be, what's it called? A global killer or whatever, a mass extinction event, right? And the reason it's called Greenland is because the characters are trying to get to Greenland where there's underground bunkers built. And the main character, Gerald Butler, he's been selected to survive the cataclysm by the United States government, the Department of Homeland Security, because he's a structural engineer. Mm-hmm. And the movie is them basically trying to get from, I don't know where the fuck they're at, Atlanta or something, to Greenland. And it was a good movie. I mean, it was very, very good. And it's getting good reviews too in the internet, on film Twitter. What I found kind of interesting about it was that it's kind of in the same vein as Deep Impact. There's a couple similarities with that one. I'm sure you saw our Twitter poll that I put up today, trying to get people to vote on Deep Impact versus Armageddon. And
I didn't know there was a Twitter poll.
Oh yeah, I put up some Twitter polls earlier asking people their favorite Roland Emmerich disaster movie, and I think Independence 2 was in the lead. Independence Day 2 was in the lead at 34%. And then I asked people to vote on Deep Impact versus Armageddon, which probably you might be a little bit too young to remember that, but both those movies came out basically right on top of each other.
I've never seen Deep Impact. I have seen Armageddon.
Well, Deep Impact is kind of intellectually the better movie. Armageddon is a Michael Bay movie, and it's got the song. It's got a song that basically everybody who was that age it was like you have a significant other in high school that song was, tied to or whatever. But Deep Impact is kind of the better movie. Armageddon was a little bit the better phenomenon. But Deep Impact, to talk about that movie for a second, has to do with a comet or asteroid that's coming towards Earth, and there's a space crew that's going up to try to blow it in half or whatever. But there's also an effort to get people in underground bunkers, and once again, there's a lottery system, which is something that I want to talk about in this segment. And Elijah Wood has been selected because he's an astronomer. He's actually the person that discovered the asteroid in the first place. He gets selected to go into the bunker. and they at the end they split the asteroid in half. The space mission is partially successful, so there's not necessarily the planet killer. It gets split in half. That kind of veers off to the side. However, there's a fragment of it that still collides with Earth and creates a deep impact. And there's a scene with him on a dirt bike, chasing, and a tsunami chasing him up a hill, and he gets up the hill, and then the tsunami doesn't get him or whatever. It's kind of goofy, but it's not a bad movie. It's not a bad movie. So seeing Greenland is kind of what made me want to talk about this, because I love movies, and apocalypse movies are kind of very visceral and very entertaining, especially with special effects being what they are today. But the two things that I wanted to talk about that are especially specific to both Greenland and Deep Impact is the idea, and they don't really dwell on this with Greenland, but it's definitely a plot point in Deep Impact. They traffic in the idea that the government knows that this is going to happen, and they're already taking precautions to save as many as they can, or however many they decide they're going to save, right?
Okay.
And this kind of ties into 2012, the movie 2012 as well, the Roland Emmerich movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where they're building the arcs, and John Cusack's trying to get his family into the Himalayan mountains where these arcs are waiting, and it's a lot of rich people, and it's a lot of fucking whatever, and those are the people that are surviving, right? Well, that's kind of interesting. Is like, is this something that exists? Do we have contingency plans in place in case something like this happens in the future, right? And I don't know, as far as, we know that there's underground bases, we know that there's bunkers, and this is just part of, for contingency plans with government, right? If there's a nuclear attack, if there's anything, right? But if
Okay.
we're talking about large scale bunkers, large scale underground military installations for housing large segments of the population, we don't know if those exist or not, right? But we do know that in Norway there is and I'm going to mispronounce this wrong. I'm not even going to try to say the name. There's what's known as the Global Seed Vault. Are you familiar
Fair.
with this? The Global Seed Vault. Do you know what this is?
No.
Okay. So in Norway, they built this giant vault, basically, that is partially underground and stores over 90,000, I'm sorry, 400,000 seed samples from
Oh, yes, I do know about that.
every type of flower, crop,
Yeah.
tree, everything from all over the world, right? And it's built into like a mountain.
Yep.
And this is there as a contingency plan in case anything happens that destroys mankind's environment. We'll have these seeds for all time, and we can access them at any time, right? So if they're going to go to that length to protect our food supply and protect plants, it stands to reason that there could also be measures in place to protect people. And this was also something that was suggested in the Coast to Coast AM Area 51 caller from like last episode or the episode before, whenever we brought that up, right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, not last episode was Christmas, so the one before that. So yeah, the idea that there could be these underground installations all over the world for protecting people. Now, all over the world is interesting, because if it's all over the world, that would suggest that there is a global combined effort to do something like this, right? If we have our own underground bases in the United States where we're going to try to wedge people, then it's an internal United States thing, right? But if we're shipping people off to Greenland, that means that there's a concerted global effort by all the governments to not only create these facilities, but also to keep them a secret, to suppress knowledge of them,
Okay.
right?
Sure.
So that's interesting, because that was brought up in the movie, and it's something that was also touched upon in Deep Impact. The second thing that was brought up in both movies, and it's not something that you see popularized a lot in conspiracy theory mythology. It kind of only exists in these two movies, as far as I know. And if I'm wrong, please let me know. But the idea that there would be a lottery system to pick who would survive,
Okay.
that's something that doesn't take a lot of explanation in either movie, but it's something that we have no precedent for in human history, right? And it's also something that it's not a wildly circulated conspiracy or anything, right? This isn't necessarily something. It's not like we're talking about UFOs or the moon landings fake or 5G and your fucking coronavirus vaccines. I mean, but this is still something that kind of manifests in pop culture here and there. The idea that if you were not allowed to save everybody, you would have to kind of handpick who would survive and who wouldn't. And some of that might be on random chance, some of it might be on profession. Gerald Butler gets saved because, and they don't go into too much detail about it. He just says, "Oh, it must be because I'm a structural engineer." Because in the opening scene, they show him laying concrete for an office building that's being built. And I guess it would kind of make sense because you would need people in the new world to build things, right?
Right.
But the idea that like there's some kind of, or maybe there's, with
Like a
everyone
list out there or something that
right,
has.
or like genetic traits or something, and we're going to
Right.
keep these people. And that's actually something that's it's a plot point in Greenland as well, where his son's diabetic, and they won't let his son onto the plane to go to the bunker because they don't want they don't want genetic defects or anything.
Wow.
Right, right, and that's a whole different
Well,
fucking
it's
thing.
not like that. This is an unheard of. I mean, right? There's Hitler, so he's a good
Well,
example.
yeah, but I mean that's where you're actively. Yeah, I mean I get that, but like, I guess the idea that there would be very selective hand picking of people, and these people will survive, these people won't. Now,
Right.
if
Not
that's
even.
something that actually if that's something that actually existed, I mean, there's no wonder why there's no leaked information about that stuff, because that would cause fucking mass riots. I mean, how many people are you going to save, and more importantly, how many people are you not going to save? And those
Well,
people that you're not going to save are going to fucking lynch the people that you are. Like the whole plan goes tits up if anyone catches even a whiff of this shit. You know
there
what I
are
mean?
also. I mean, there's currently these big underground facilities that private people or companies or whatever have built that will take a deposit payment for to secure your place in these bunkers if you if shit goes down, which is kind of silly because how useful is money going to be, but they do exist.
Well, one of the arguments they make in 2012 is the reason they take the money now is because they still need to build the fucking things.
But what's
So
money
the
going to
reason
do in an apocalypse?
they're what?
What is money going to do in an apocalypse? It doesn't
It's not.
matter
It's not about it's not about needing the money then. It's about needing the money now to build it.
now to make it now. Okay, I
Right.
see.
So like you want to build a bunker and you're going to charge $1 million a bed. Okay, but that's not because you want to have $1 million in the bank when this all is said and
I see what
done.
you're saying.
It's because you need to hire the fucking immigrant workers to come in and build this shit with the $1 million.
Well,
You know
right,
what I
and
mean?
then if the world doesn't end in your lifetime, then you've got millions of dollars.
Or hopefully you already spent it on the bunker and the bunker's there.
Yeah.
If you really thought that this was going to happen, then yeah, you're not worried about stockpiling fucking cash, a
Yeah.
fiat currency for the next age. You're really worried about getting these things built and paid for now so that
Right.
they exist.
So there, yeah, that's true. But I mean, so that there is that influence of like money, but when you go through like different military files and stuff, I mean, we've got plans for almost everything. We've got plans for alien invasion. We've got plans for a zombie outbreak. Those are real. Like they're out there. Does it mean that they're going to happen? No, there's probably not ever going to be a zombie outbreak. But so surely they've got a doomsday plan for every scenario. But you're right, they probably don't have that information out there for everybody to see because it would do more harm than good.
Right. And you would need I mean, I guess if you're really concerned about trying to save people, and you're talking about a global killer event, right? Then you need to build the biggest bunker possible to save as many people as possible. And if those are being built, I mean, I don't think they're being necessarily, but I don't know about any of them. You know what I mean? I don't know where they're at.
Yeah,
But
well, so I mean, if you look at things like we've kind of talked about before on the show, like Right Pat and their underground tunnels and things like that. I mean, those things would obviously be converted, or maybe
well,
they're already livable down there, but they don't tell us that they're there. But they're most likely there.
have you ever heard about the mattress store
Yes.
conspiracy? Yes. And
Well,
that is one explanation, is that's why there's fucking mattress stores across the street from each other,
yeah, that
is
would be
because these are not just,
mattress stores.
yes, they're entry points that, like, you go, like, you know what I mean? Like, you go in there and there's a back room and there's a fucking elevator that goes all the way down. And
Yeah.
that'll lead to a fucking underground rail system or something, and
I've
people.
never heard that. That's interesting. I guess I never really looked much into it, but it is weird. I had always heard that they were used for human trafficking, which I guess they could have a literal underground railroad for that.
Well, if it is human trafficking, then it's got to be some next level, because you're not
Yeah.
building. Listen, there's a lot of shit you can get away with, but an underground railroad system, fucking no, 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 no. Everybody knows about that. So if it's, you know what I mean, like, there's no way you could fucking do that through major cities and shit. With, it's not some, like, fucking Steven Spielberg has an underground train station that goes to the United States. Like,
Why
that's,
couldn't it wouldn't be an actual train station, but like to get you underground to I mean maybe the tunnels would be a couple of miles long to get you to the next business, plop you in a car, take you to the next tunnel, go underground again. I mean it would give you less exposure.
yeah. But what I'm saying is that kind of system being in place is something that only the government could, um kind of allow.
Well, sure,
So
you'd have to
it
put
wouldn't be
in
private industry. It wouldn't be it wouldn't just be like
no,
Hollywood pedophiles. That would have to be like, no, there's, and the Army Corps of Engineers is involved in this shit. You know what I
right.
mean?
You're
They're
digging
the
up
ones,
you're digging
right?
underground. I mean it's a
Right.
it's
So
not
that's why
easy.
human trafficking, like, that's a little fucking dark, because at that point, if you believe that the Army Corps of Engineers is building train tunnels and fucking underground stations and shit just to
I
move
mean,
fucking
but people
children
kind of do
around,
think that, so I don't
I don't
know.
know.
I don't think it's true, but people do think
Yeah,
that.
I
It's
don't want
sad.
to live in that world. I reject that
Right. And it's
reality.
yeah, that's too much. That's a little out there for myself personally. But yeah, I mean, whatever. The mattress store thing, that's fun. That's a fun thing. Because it is weird. But anyway, what we're gonna, but there are, like again, there are like privately owned bunkers that people have built and made, and like I said, people secure their spot with the money. But then it's like, who's to say that they don't, they take your money now in this life, but then come to find out you're all fucked up or genetically or whatever, and they don't want you, so they just turn you down. I mean, fuck, you already paid your money. Who cares?
Right, and I always worry about that because, like, listen, like, you see these things where it's like, oh, this guy's got it's got a bunker and it's built into this hill, and it's like, yeah, dude, but like, if the fucking plates shift and the poles reverse and this land is underwater, like, I don't know, like, aren't you fucked? Like, are you better off going in the mountains, or are you better off going underground? Are you better off being up in the air or under the water or
I mean,
underground?
because if you go
Because,
underground, you always run the risk of being crushed.
yeah, I've had nightmares where, like, there's a scenario like that and I'm in some underground fucking thing, and yeah, it's obviously not going to withhold whatever's going on upstairs.
Well, right, and just
Um
depending on what the scenario is, I mean, gosh, if something happens to our atmosphere, not just our atmosphere, if something happens cataclysmically in space and we shift at all away from where we are, it's going to fuck up our gravity. We're going to die anyway. There's nothing
yeah.
anybody can do to stop it. That's just the way it's going to be. So I mean, I guess, but these people, I think, really genuinely do get very obsessed, and they spend their all of their life at that point creating this hobby. I don't know if I want to call it a hobby. I think that's a little unfair, but that's basically what it is, I guess. And I think they do their research. I think they do their homework. So who knows, maybe the guy that's got his bunker on the side of the mountain, now that the mountain bunker's built, he's going to make an underground one.
Yeah, I mean, I would rather go up than down. I think that just seems to make more sense.
Yeah.
Um, but I also think that there's a lot of, like, when you see a lot of these preppers, it's like, they're protecting themselves from, like, maybe civil unrest or zombies or something ridiculous like
Yeah,
that. But,
usually so.
if there's any kind of, like, earth change that involves, like, you know oceans spilling out into dry land or something. Like you're kind of
Yeah.
like that bunker's only going to get you so far, buddy. And I don't know how far you can keep digging before that shit just stops. I don't know. Eventually, you need
Well,
air.
before
You
you
know what I
fall.
mean?
Well, so I mean, I will say I'm not going to knock these people because you know what? I'd rather have a bunker than not. I'd rather have something than nothing. You know what I mean? I'd rather have the chance if something horrible was going to happen. I'd probably take my chances and go try to live in my bunker. And then if I die, well, fuck, I did everything I could.
Yeah. I
But
just
I'll probably never invest that much money into it. I mean, I'd have to own property first, and I'm pretty far behind that. So
I always love seeing these movies where like because there's always a scene without fail every single time. There's always a scene where like they're driving through a city, right? It's been announced on the news that this is happening, right? The cat's out of the bag,
yeah.
and they'll be driving through the city, and there's always a scene of a guy running down the street with a TV. I'm always just like, who the fuck is this? Like, this guy did he only hear like half of the fucking news, like the
Yeah.
breaking news, and then just like ran out and like knocked over a Best Buy. But like, I think that movie is there. It happened in Greenland, but I think the first time I noticed it, you ever see the Nicolas Cage movie, Knowing?
No.
And it's where like there's some kind of like code that he finds, and I think it has to do with like that's a 2012 movie too, I want to say. And basically there's a solar flare that's going to wipe out Earth, and aliens come and take the kids so that the kids can repopulate another planet. And
Oh, that's nice
basically
with the aliens. Wow.
yeah, oh, it's a good movie to check out. It's by the guy that did The Crow and Dark City.
Okay.
I'm not going to butcher his name right now, but it's worth checking out. Knowing with Nicolas Cage, but there's a scene where the solar flare is going to hit, and he's just trying to get to his parents' house to reconcile, and he's going to be with his parents when the solar flare hits, and he's driving through a city, and there's people looting fucking liquor stores, and someone's running down the street with a TV, and you're just like, they fucking, what are you gonna do with the TV? The solar flare is going to melt everything, and you're like, yo, check out this flat screen, ah, you know.
He's probably like something's going on in the news. I don't have a TV, and that's why I got the TV. So that's great. He probably has no idea. He just knows that shit's wrong. But I've never noticed that before. I'm gonna start looking out for that in my apocalypse movies.
Do you have a favorite one or one that kind of had weight with you as a child?
Probably Independence Day was really popular. So that's well, and obvious. Again, I was a big Will Smith fan, so
Right.
so
Jesus.
I was.
Apparently.
I loved me some Will Smith. So yeah, so I mean that one, definitely sticks with me. But no, I guess when I think about it, I guess I haven't really seen a bunch. One of the more recent ones that I can think of that was done well, in my opinion, was This Is the End was really good. I liked
Yes.
I liked the
Wow.
comedy aspect to it. That's a good
That
apocalypse movie.
that's a curveball, man.
Why?
Because I didn't even think of that. But I mean
Yeah,
it's very I
it's
saw that in the
biblical.
theater. Yeah. I
And
mean
it's
it's good.
stupid, but it's what it's supposed to be. So, it is what it is. But it's a good movie. I mean, it's not very well. I mean, it is kind of accurate to the biblical stuff. I mean, they do kind of, they get deep for a minute, which is interesting because a lot of the times with these apocalypse movies, there's really not many that are about like the rapture and things like that. They're usually about attacks from space or whatever. And so, but it was done well. I liked it. Um, and
You
then
know,
I think, oh, go ahead.
I felt like we were closing the show, and I had forgotten that I had pulled up on my notes on the Book of Revelation in case we wanted to go over that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, this is it this is the end or the
This
end?
is the end. Yeah.
This is the end. So, uh, what's his name? Seth Rogen
Yeah.
had said that he always growing up because he got started in show business kind of young. He was on that show Undeclared, which was
Yeah.
one of Judd Apatow's TV shows after Freaks and Geeks. He was on Freaks and Geeks too, but he had wanted to, all the scripts that he tried to sell Hollywood were like Ghostbusters, This Is the End. Well, not This Is the End, obviously he wrote later on in life, but stuff of that vein where he wanted to
Yeah.
mix science fiction and comedy
And
and
comedy,
all
right.
and weird shit. and that Hollywood was like, no, 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 you'll never just write a comedy, just do Superbad, and that's why Superbad was the first one. And then once he did that, he was able to kind of parlay it into bigger and bigger stuff, and then he really swang for the fences with This Is the End, and I appreciate that. It was pretty good, pretty good movie.
It really people don't talk about it enough. I really enjoyed it. I mean, I don't know, I don't
Yeah,
understand. I feel like that whole gang kind of gets shit on, but I don't get it, man. I like those movies. I don't know. I guess when I want to watch a comedy, I want to watch something that's just fucking stupid. You know,
right.
that's what
No,
I'm
that,
going for. So, but yeah, no, This Is the End is a good one. And it's a fresh take on the genre. You know what I mean? It's something different, and so it's not just all doom and gloom. And then I also, I mean, I'll probably get hate on for this, but that's fine. I really like 10 Cloverfield Lane. I like that.
yes. Well, that was not a Cloverfield movie. That
Eh,
was yes, the original script. It was so they did that for a while. J.J. Abrams was gonna, just like that other one, the
the
Cloverfield
paradox.
Paradox.
Paradox. I didn't watch
I
that
love
one.
I love all three of those movies. Um, Overlord was supposed to be another Cloverfield one, and they changed it. He just bought scripts, and if Cloverfield was supposed to be like this franchise where, they were there was no going to be no direct sequels. They were had to be good stories, and then they were just going to kind of throw in the Cloverfield tag, and that's why like that 10 Cloverfield Lane, that's the address, right? And Cloverfield Paradox, like that's the fucking thing up in space, like you know what I
Right.
mean? Um,
Right, they're not all really connected, but you can definitely draw them together.
yeah, but you really have to do that. Like you have to Paradox, not so much because it's obviously the monster, although the monster is significantly larger than anything we saw in the first Cloverfield movie,
Right.
and the aliens that you see in 10 Cloverfield Lane. I don't even know how the fuck those tie back to either one of those movies, because they're completely different. I mean, they're in little flying saucers, like it's a completely different fucking thing. But yeah, that was not a supernatural script. The way that story was written, that original, and you can look this up on the internet. That screenplay was supposed to just be John Goodman was a fucking lunatic,
He did so good, though.
right?
He did a great job in that
When
role.
he
They all
shaves,
What's that?
when he shaves,
Yeah.
you know that he's going to rape the shit out of her. And
Yeah.
it's such a subtle fucking character thing to do. There has never been a more ominous,
Yeah.
but like seemingly benign thing that, I mean, it's such a great bit of like storytelling and character nuance. Holy shit.
I
When
watched it in the theater, and I think that was
yes.
really important because the atmosphere of everybody was confused. Nobody knew what to think, and the whole time everybody was on edge. Like, well, is this guy just crazy? Is this really going on? What's going on here? Nobody knew, and like you said, in that scene, especially, everybody's like just waiting.
Right.
And it was just the air was so thick. That's one of those you can enjoy it at home, but that's one of those movies that I feel like you almost, I mean, the theater experience didn't make it, but it definitely made it that much better for me. So maybe that's why I like it so much and other people don't. If you didn't see it in the theater with a crowded theater, then I mean it's a different experience.
Yeah. I went with a coworker, and we had gotten drinks before we went to go see it. And I immediately wished that I was sober. I was like, "Oh, why am I drunk during this? This is fucking awesome."
Right.
But
I
I've
gotta keep
since seen it like 2 or 3 times. Like
Yeah.
it's a that's a good one too. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, it is. It's a really good movie, and I mean, we won't give away every. Oh, I guess we kind of already did. Kind of already spoiled it. Sorry, guys, but yeah, it's a good one. If you haven't seen it, watch it, and then if you're looking for a silly end of the world movie, watch This Is the End because they did a good job as well. And like I said, they brought in the biblical stuff into it, which was interesting. I mean, it was a different
Right.
take. So, but yeah, those are both. I recommend both of those.
There's a in this now that you bring up 10 Cloverfield Lane, there's another movie called Last Night, and it's kind of like an ensemble character drama where they never say exactly what's gonna happen, but it's understood that like at 6 a.m. there's gonna be some kind of event, and
Oh, don't ruin it.
it's gonna wipe out everything.
I
right. So
haven't
it's
seen this one, but I've heard of that one. Yeah, I've
last
forgot.
night. No, it's really good, and it's made from Toronto. It's made out of Toronto. So it's Canadian, and it's like the French. It's like the guy that did it is like French Canadian. You know how they have that whole deal going on up there.
Yeah,
But it's really good.
Canadian deal.
Yeah, and it's a couple different. You know who's in it? Sarah Polly, who was in the Dawn of the Dead remake and a couple other things. She was in Go, but like it's just it just shows how different people would process it. Like there's a married couple that just wants to party and kind of do like the orgy thing. There's one guy that's just trying to screw literally everybody he can. You know, there's people that want to spend it at home with their families, and there's exes trying to reunite, and just the different ways that people would handle it and process it. But it's inevitable, so it's like kind of like there's you're not going to survive it. There's no scramble where we got to get to the bunker. It's
Right.
just like we've known about this for 3 months. Everybody who's going to commit suicide committed suicide. The people that are left are the people that are going down with the ship, and this is how they spend their last 12 hours.
Yeah.
And it's kind of an interesting one to look at the psychology of how people would process that.
Yeah, because I mean, everybody knows about the 2012 and Independence Day and Armageddon. I mean, everybody knows those. These are kind of ones that people don't really discuss very often when talking about these kinds of movies. So I think that's cool. That's a good topic.
Well, it brings into question like what after you're caught, because like having lived through these now, the year 2000 and the year 2012 and last Tuesday or whatever, um, you know, it's one thing to have apprehension where you don't know if it's going to happen or not.
Yeah.
But what happens when you do know? What happens when it's not just a maybe anymore? And it's not just something that Alex Jones is talking about, or it's not just something that some internet crank is on fucking Coast to Coast AM trying to sell an ebook about.
Perspective. Well, let me throw this out here because it is, going back, stepping away a little bit from like the sillier stuff. It is really kind of very eerie. There's an episode of Good Mythical Morning, and which I'm sure a lot of people know of Rhett and Link, where they talk about how I guess CBS or somebody, whoever it is, ABC or whoever the fuck that is, they have a tape that they're prepared to play.
Oh, it's TNT, or it's Ted Turner's. I think it might be CNN. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Right. So they were talking about it, and they had an idea to go ahead and record a video for the end of the world, and you can watch it. And, it really, it's supposed to be silly. It really is, but it fucks with you. Yeah, it does, because you're like, what if this does happen? Like you said, what are you gonna do in that case?
Well, did you ever see Gremlins 2?
Yeah.
They lampoon that scene at the end where the guy that's supposed to be Trump, Clamp, he's up in his office and he goes, "Well, it's time to play this tape. I hope that we never would, but
Yeah.
boom." And he plays it, and it plays over as like they prepare for the final battle with the Gremlins.
Yep.
But that's a real thing. I want it. It's either TBS or TNT or something. I think TBS, Turner Broadcast
companies, but it is a thing, and they have a tape that they're ready. That's what they're going to play while the world ends, and it's like, wow. And other like Family Guy did it, where it was a April Fool's Day prank where they were saying that the world was ending, and then they're like, oh, just kidding, it's not, but they kind of showed what you would do, in that case of the world's ending or whatever. I mean, there has been things that have like shown that perspective of it, but I guess when you really kind of sit down and you get into a certain mindset and you really think about it, and you're like, fuck, this is eerie. It's really weird. So, I mean, I can't imagine, knowing that it's actually happening. Rhett and Link, like, even take it very far. Like, to the point to where it's like shows them like dying and stuff. So check that video out. But it's supposed to be fun.
I had when I worked midnights, and I was like a very prolific writer, and I say that with a smirk on my face. I was working on a stage play that was supposed to be about. It opens up with a guy at home, and there's a knock on his door, and he's at home in his apartment. He's this like presumably single guy, and there's a knock on the door, and he opens it up, and there's a dude in a military outfit, and he comes in and he says, "Listen, the world's going to end in 36 hours. And you've been selected to survive this. and because of whatever reason, because of your career, and basically you are. We will be back here in 24 hours to pick you up, and for the sake of the proliferation of the human race, you're allowed to bring 3 women into the bunker with you.
Okay.
And they need to be here in 24 hours when we come back to pick you up. And, we're going to make an announcement tonight on the news. So if you can tell them what you want to tell them, like you don't need to keep it a secret. But, in an hour, there's going to be an announcement and then blah, blah, blah. And this dude this dude goes and, he's got to have these conversations with these different women in his life and try to convince them to come in the bunker with him.
Okay.
And there's so this was an idea that I had. I thought it was like the world's best idea in the world. I just thought it was interesting. I'm like, oh, it'll work good as a
bad idea.
It'll work good as a play because you could do it on a stage with just 2 people at a time, more or less, right? So the opening scene is just a card table with a guy and he's sitting at the kitchen table, and there's another dude and he's dressed up like a military dude. This you could easily put this play on in a you could run a theater, and with a small group of actors you could put this play on, right? And but I started talking to people. I started talking to girls especially, and I'm like, well, what if someone came to you and said this, right? So let's look at the different girls that he's going to go to. Number one, he's got a girlfriend, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the girlfriend is all about it until she finds out that there's 2 more that have to come in the bunker with him. And she's like, well, no, I'm not going to spend the rest of my life sharing you with other people. That's not what I'm into, you know what I mean? And then what happens if you go to an ex and the ex is like, no, I'm with this new person now and I don't want to leave them and I'd rather be with them when this ends, even if it means I have the chance to survive myself, Or what if you went to somebody that you were really good friends with that was like a real good female friend and you said, hey, do you want to come with? And she's like, so I'm going to be your fucking sex slave now until in this little underground cave? That's fucked up, And so there's all these different reasons why people would say no. You think that it's kind of like this adolescent male fantasy, but the more I started to think about it, and the more I started to talk to people about it, the more I realized how quickly it would fall apart and how it would actually be kind of difficult to try to you think you got 3 tickets to fucking salvation, right?
Sure.
But it wouldn't necessarily turn out like that, right? So I don't know. That was always an idea that I had that I never really did anything with. But
I don't think that's a bad idea. I think that'd be pretty interesting, actually.
yeah, I think he ended up only going to the bunker with one chick, and it was some girl from he was in night classes, and it was some younger girl that he sat behind him in Com 102 or something.
Yeah.
He's like, you're kind of hot. And she's like, well, I hate my parents anyway, so let's do this. I think that was kind of, and he was going to have 2 empty seats and be like, I don't know what to do. I could find 2 other chicks.
That would suck. Well, man, I think that'd be a good idea. What do you guys think? You guys think Pat should finish this? I don't think he's interested in doing it, but
project for 2021.
There you go.
I could crank that out in a month. That'd be a good January project.
I think that would be pretty interesting, especially during these times. I think you can definitely monetize off of the pandemic right now. So it's kind of a hot ticket at the moment. Nobody really knows what the hell's going on. So, but either way, this is a long one. Wow, you guys get to bring in the new year with a long one. How lucky! How lucky for you.
Double sized.
So, as of right now, I don't think that there are any upcoming doomsday dates. If one pops up in our lifetime, which I'm sure it will, again, it will probably be fine. And then I'm just not gonna, you know what? I don't care if it's coming from the fucking president. I'll just be like, whatever. You're lying.
Well, that's kind of the interesting part about asteroids and stuff is that you don't normally hear about them until you get close. Like there's a possibility, like going back to these bunkers, maybe there's something they spotted 20 years ago that isn't going to hit us for another 15. But when it hits, it's going to be fucking big. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I mean,
Could
there's always
always
that.
happen. Yeah, I mean, shit could always go wrong at any moment.
Yeah, or they could always spot something tomorrow that's going to, there's a whole lot of sky out there. You know,
It'd be
and it's
interesting. Like if we saw something that was like 100 years away, and we can, if we did spot something that we thought could, and we knew long term, like I said, 100 years, I'm not going to be around in 100 years. You're not going to be around in 100 years. It's interesting to see that perspective as opposed to like even a year, which we would still work our asses off. But then at that point, think about the advances that we would make to leave the planet, because that would be our only option at that point, would be to leave.
There's some people that think that that's what UFOs are, is a secret space program that's trying to build off-world, depositories of people so that we have a place to chill while shit hits the earth. You know what I mean? Or that's what some of these deep space probes that we send out there, that they're going to attach onto some of these to a giant asteroid, and they're going to have solar flares, and they're going to try to nudge it off course so that on a long enough timeline it misses us, it hits Jupiter or whatever. You know what I mean?
That would still fuck our world up. I mean, I don't know if that's a good idea.
What?
It just wouldn't hit us directly.
Well, that's why the Earth is habitable as it is because we have Jupiter that absorbs most of the fucking. It's such a huge, takes up such a huge part of the night sky. It absorbs most of the debris from space.
Every single portion of our solar system is which is, I'm not a religious person, but it's definitely handcrafted for us to live here. It's a perfect storm for us to be here, which is why there are some people that do actually think that we're alone, that this isn't possible because the way that everything is made up is just so perfect that you could almost not replicate those results again, which I don't think so. But
I think it's so big and infinite that everything will replicate at some point. And the reason that it is perfect, and it's like, wow, look how perfect this is. It's like, dude, the only reason that you have eyes to look at how perfect this is because it is perfect. Because it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. You know what I mean?
It's just cyclical. I mean, that's all it is. And so it's a very interesting, it's a very happy catch-22. It really is. I mean, if you're happy to be alive, it's a very positive one to have. But yeah, so anyway, all right. Well, I don't think I have anything else to cover here. Do you? You want to say anything?
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
See you guys next year.
Yeah, we're gonna see you guys next year in 2021. Don't drink and drive. Don't do that. I don't care how good of a driver you think you are when you're drunk. You are allowed to kill yourself, but you're not allowed to kill other people. And
right.
That's important. So I am not going to tolerate it. Anybody that if you buy an Uber for New Year's, and you send me your proof of purchase, I will
listen to this shit.
I will send you a picture of my boobs.
Okay, I was gonna say.
What'd you think was gonna happen?
I thought you were gonna reimburse them or something. I was like, listen to this fucking big shit.
No, my boobs they're worth more than an Uber ride. So
I think that is.
So so if you so that's the deal. You show me your Uber receipts from New Year's Eve, and I will show you my boobs. Just don't drink and drive, please.
Such a humanitarian.
I know, it's just natural. My caring of people. It's so nice. Well, you got to get people's attention somehow, and I'm damn good at doing it. So, all right then, guys. Well, we will see you next year.